My name is Adil, and until a few weeks ago, my life was nothing but a constant struggle for survival. At 23, I was balancing my days between university lectures and grueling night shifts at a shabby hotel where I scrubbed greasy dishes. Until my hands were raw. Every rupee I earned felt like a drop in an endless ocean of needs. My mother's mounting hospital bills, my sister's abandoned college semester, and my own tuition, which hung by a thread. Most nights, as I dragged myself back to my cramped hostel room, I would stare at the cracked ceiling and whisper to myself, maybe tomorrow will be different, maybe. But it never was. That is, until the night I met Madame Sophia. It was during a university fundraiser, a glittering evening where chandeliers sparkled like stars and people like me were invisible, moving around only to serve. I was there as a volunteer, arranging tables and clearing glasses while wealthy donors discussed $1,000,000 pledges like it was pocket change. She stood out instantly, not because she was loud or demanding, but because of her presence. Sophia, 71 years old, with silver hair pinned elegantly, a posture straighter than any of the young women around her, and a soft, unreadable smile. While others laughed loudly and flaunted their status, she sat quietly, observing, sipping her wine like a queen among pawns. I didn't dare approach her. She was far above my world. But fate, as always, had its own plan. Later that night, as I cleared plates near the back of the hall, a small leather wallet slipped from her designer purse and hit the floor. I immediately bent to pick it up. "Excuse me, ma'am," I said. Softly, holding it out, she turned, her eyes, a piercing shade of blue, locking onto mine. For a moment, I felt seen. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice calm, deliberate. "Adil, ma'am," I stammered, keeping my gaze lowered. "You're a student?" "Yes, and—" "I work here part-time," I admitted, embarrassed. She studied me for a long second, then simply said, "Come to my office tomorrow." I froze. "Ma'am?" Her lips curved slightly. "You returned my wallet without a glance inside." "Most wouldn't. I like people who don't take what isn't theirs. Come, we'll talk." That entire night, I couldn't sleep. My friends joked that maybe she wanted to offer me a job or a scholarship. A tiny voice in my head whispered, "What if this is your chance to finally breathe?" The next morning, I walked into her skyscraper office, my palms sweating. She sat behind a massive mahogany desk, the city skyline stretching behind her like a painting. Without any pleasantries, she leaned forward and said words I will never forget. "Adil, I need companionship, someone loyal. Marry me." For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. The room felt silent, except for the pounding in my chest. "Marry you?" I managed to whisper. Her expression didn't change. "Yes, I am 71. I do not need romance or flattery. I need a man who can stand beside me, not for my beauty, but for my name, and who will not betray me." My mind spiraled. A millionaire, no, a multimillionaire, asking a broke student to marry her? The world would laugh. My friends would call me a gold digger. My family would never understand, but then images flashed in my mind. My mother, coughing in her hospital bed because we couldn't afford her treatment. My sister, crying quietly when she had to leave college. My own dreams, crushed by unpaid bills. I asked hesitantly, "Why me?" She smiled faintly. "Because, you know, hunger. And a man who has truly starved will never waste what is given to him." That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling again. But this time, it wasn't despair filling my chest, it was fear. Fear of what my life would become if I said yes, and fear of what would happen if I said no. By dawn, I had made my decision. We married in a private ceremony, away from cameras and curious eyes. No lavish ballroom, no hundreds of guests, just a quiet exchange of vows in her garden beneath. Lanterns that swayed in the evening breeze. As I slid the ring onto her wrinkled hand, I felt the weight of the choice I had made. Every glance I caught from the handful of witnesses carried unspoken words, pity, mockery, disbelief. I avoided their eyes. I told myself I was doing this for survival, for my family, for a chance at a life I could never build on my own. But little did I know, 7 days later, I would see something that would turn my entire world upside down and make me question whether I had just walked into the greatest blessing of my life, or the most dangerous trap I could imagine. The first 6 days of my marriage felt like I had been dropped into someone else's dream. Just a week earlier, I had been living in a damp hostel room with peeling paint, surviving on tea and leftover naan. Now, I woke up in a bedroom bigger than my entire university floor, with a balcony overlooking acres of manicured gardens and a butler knocking on my door every morning to ask, "Sir, coffee or tea today?" It felt unreal, like my life was wrapped in velvet and gold, but my heart still carried the weight of my old world. I couldn't help but feel out of place. The marble floors echoed under my shoes, and every time I walked through the vast corridors, the portraits of Sophia's ancestors seemed to stare down at me like they were silently questioning why I was there. Sophia herself treated me kindly, but she was distant. She was never cruel, never unkind. In fact, she made sure my family received money for my mother's treatments and my sister's college fees without me even asking. But there was a wall between us. When we dined together in the grand hall, the sound of cutlery often felt louder than our conversations, and yet she had a way of looking at me sometimes as if she were studying me, testing me. On the morning of the 7th day, she entered the dining room where I sat staring at a breakfast platter too elegant for someone who had grown up on street food. Her presence was always commanding, even in her simple silk gown. "A deal," she said, her tone calm but firm. "Today, you will see a part of my life no one else has seen. Get dressed. We leave in an hour." I looked up, startled. "Where are we going?" Her pale lips curved into the faintest smile. "To the place that will make you understand why I married you." An hour later, we were gliding through the city in her black limousine. At first, I thought we were heading to one of her companies, maybe a boardroom where she wanted me to learn her business. But as we drove further, I realized we weren't heading toward the glass towers and bustling streets. We were leaving the polished city behind, heading into its forgotten edges. The car rolled past crumbling warehouses, their windows boarded up, graffiti eating away at their walls. The streets grew quieter, emptier. The sky felt heavier. Finally, the car stopped before a massive abandoned factory. Its gates hung crooked, the metal rusted and creaking in the wind. It looked like a place no soul had entered in years. I turned to her. "Madam, what is this place?" She didn't answer, just stepped out of the car, her posture regal despite the bleak surroundings. The driver stayed behind. "Follow me." A deal. Inside, the air smelled of dust and metal, each step echoing in the hollow space. We walked through a dark corridor until we reached a heavy steel door, unlike the rusted ones outside. Sophia reached into her coat, pulled out a small keypad, and entered a code. A deep metallic click echoed, and the door slowly groaned open. What I saw beyond that door felt unreal. The room glowed with dim golden light. Stacks upon stacks of cash wrapped in plastic, gold bars, antique jewelry, and rare paintings filled the space like a private museum of wealth. The air itself seemed heavy, as if every breath carried the weight of a secret that shouldn't exist. I took a step forward, my voice barely a whisper. "What is this?" Sophia walked to the center, her heels clicking on the polished concrete, and turned to face me. "This, Adil, is my legacy. Every deal I made, every empire I built, every risk I took, it all led here. I turned in a slow circle, overwhelmed. The room could have bought entire cities. Before I could speak again, she said something that made my legs feel weak. Half of this now belongs to you. I stared at her, certain I had misheard. What? No? I don't understand. I haven't done anything to deserve this. She raised a hand, silencing me. I didn't marry you for love, Adil. I married you because I needed someone untouched by greed yet familiar with hunger. A man who knows the value of loyalty, because he has lived without comfort. Her eyes, sharp and unblinking, locked onto mine. You are that man. And in my world, trust is more precious than gold. I swallowed hard, trying to find words, but my mind was racing. Why me? Why give me this? Then I noticed something. At the far end of the chamber, partially hidden behind a towering stack of crates, was another steel door. This one didn't have a keypad. It had a massive, old-fashioned lock, the kind you'd expect in a prison. Sophia noticed me staring. Her gaze followed mine, but her face remained unreadable. That door, she said softly, holds the part of my life that even the richest would fear to know. And if you ever open it, your life will never be the same. Her words sent a chill down my spine. Before I could ask what she meant, she placed a heavy key in my hand. The metal was cold, its weight unsettling. Keep it, she said. Someday, you may need to know what's behind that door. But once you do, there's no turning back. As we left the vault, my head spun with questions. What could be so dangerous, so important, that she would trust me with this key after only 7 days? And deep inside, a quiet fear began to grow, because something told me whatever was behind that locked door wasn't just cold in my palm. The entire ride was something far darker. Sophia didn't say another word during the journey. She simply sat with her hands folded, staring out the tinted window as the city lights blurred past. Her silence was heavier than any lecture or explanation. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that second steel door in my mind. Its heavy lock, the way Sophia's voice had dropped when she spoke about it. Once you open it, there's no turning back. What could possibly be behind it? More treasure? Some hidden crime? Or something far worse? I told myself not to think about it, not to let curiosity take over. But curiosity has a way of whispering when everything else is silent. 3 days passed. The mansion was quiet as always its long hallways echoing with nothing but the soft footsteps of servants. Sophia had been spending more time in her study, surrounded by files and phone calls, her face unreadable. One evening, as we were finishing dinner, she spoke without looking up from her plate. "Adil, you've been restless." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. Restless? Her eyes lifted to meet mine. Those piercing blue eyes that always seemed to read more than I wanted to reveal. "You want to know what's behind the door?" I swallowed hard. Yes. For a long moment, she didn't respond. Then, she pushed her chair back and stood. "Finish your meal. Tonight, I'll show you." The drive back to the factory felt colder this time. There was no conversation, no explanation. Only the soft hum of the car and the pounding of my heart. Inside the underground vault, the gold and jewels looked the same, but tonight, they didn't capture my attention. My eyes went straight to the far wall, to that locked door waiting like a shadow in the corner. Sophia walked toward it, her heels echoing sharply. She turned to me and extended her hand. The key. I hesitated before placing it in her palm. With a slow, deliberate motion, she unlocked the heavy mechanism. The sound of the lock disengaging echoed through the chamber, sharp and final. When she pulled the door open, a gust of cold air rushed out, stale, heavy. and tinged with something metallic. The room beyond wasn't like the glowing vault. It was dim, lined with metal shelves stacked with boxes and files. A faint hum of old fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and on one wall, a row of photographs. I stepped closer, my chest tightening. Each photograph showed a face, men, women, all different ages, and beneath each one, a small metal plate with a single word, missing. My voice cracked. Who are these people? Sophia didn't flinch. My past and my burden. She moved to a shelf and pulled out a file, tossing it onto a table with a dull thud. The folder slid open, revealing documents, contracts, and reports of deaths and disappearances tied to her old business dealings. She finally looked at me, her expression unreadable, but her eyes colder than I'd ever seen. The empire I built, it didn't come clean. I dealt with people who couldn't be trusted. Some betrayed me. Some tried to destroy me. Others had to be dealt with before they could. I stepped back, my breath shallow. You had them killed? Her silence was the only answer I needed. She walked toward me, her step slow but steady. Do you understand now why I chose you, Adil? Not for love. Not for companionship. But because I needed someone untouched by my world, someone invisible, someone no one would suspect, to hold my secrets and protect them if I am gone. Before I could respond, she pulled a sealed envelope from her coat and pressed it into my hand. If something happens to me, she said quietly, open this. Inside is everything. The truth, the instructions, the rest of what you must do. I stared at the envelope, my fingers trembling. Why me? Why trust me with this? For the first time, her cold composure cracked, just slightly. Because, Adil, the moment you walked into my life, I knew you weren't like the vultures I've known all my life. You know, suffering. And a man who knows suffering will either sell his soul for comfort or protect those who gave him a way out. She turned and walked toward the door, leaving me standing there in that cold, dim room, surrounded by the faces of the missing and a truth I could barely comprehend. As the heavy door locked behind us, I felt the envelope in my hand like a weight, pulling me down. What had I gotten myself into? And deep down, a far more terrifying thought. If Sophia had so many enemies, what would they do to me if they discovered I was now holding her secrets? The night after Sophia showed me that hidden room, the mansion felt different. It was still as grand as ever, with its crystal chandeliers and endless corridors. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls themselves were whispering secrets. Every shadow seemed deeper, every sound sharper. The envelope she'd given me lay untouched in my drawer. I hadn't dared open it yet, but its presence haunted me. What could possibly be inside? Instructions? A confession? Or something that could get me killed if the wrong person found it? For the next few days, Sophia acted as if nothing had happened. She attended meetings, signed documents, made calls, and at dinner, she would simply ask about my day as though we hadn't stood in a room filled with the faces of the missing just nights before, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. We were being watched. It started subtly. A black SUV parked a little too long outside the gates one afternoon. A stranger pretending to jog by the mansion more than once in a day. The faintest click on the phone line when I called my sister. One evening, as I stood on the balcony overlooking the gardens, I spotted a glint of light from the tree line, like someone adjusting a lens. When I told Sophia, she didn't look surprised. She just sipped her tea and said, "They've been watching me for years. Adil, it's only a matter of time before they try something drastic." I frowned. "Who are they?" Her gaze shifted toward me, calm but unreadable. "People who think they deserve what I built. Former associates. Enemies who've waited for me to slip, but I never slip." She placed her cup down. "Which is why I chose you. They don't know you. And they don't know what you're capable of when you have something to protect." Her words unsettled me. I wasn't some bodyguard or criminal. I was just a broke student who stumbled into her world. But before I could question her further, the moment I had dreaded finally came. It was just after midnight when the first sound woke me, a faint creak, followed by a muffled thud from the west wing of the mansion. At first I thought it was a servant, but then I heard another sound, the sharp crack of glass breaking. I grabbed the small emergency flashlight Sophia had insisted I keep by the bed and crept toward the door. The hallway was dark, the usual warm glow of the sconces gone. The power had been cut. From the distance, I heard Sophia's voice, low but firm, and another voice, gruff and unfamiliar. By the time I reached the grand staircase, I saw them. 3 masked men, dressed in black, moving like shadows through the hall. One had Sophia by the arm. Another carried a silenced weapon. My heart pounded. I wasn't brave. I wasn't trained for this. But something primal took over, maybe fear, maybe adrenaline. I grabbed the heavy brass candlestick from a table and moved silently along the upper balcony. The man with the gun turned his back for just a second. I didn't think. I swung. The candlestick connected with a sickening thud, and he crumpled to the floor. The other 2 spun around, but Sophia moved quicker than I expected for her age. She jabbed her elbow into one intruder's ribs and kicked his knee out, sending him stumbling. The third lunged toward me, but I swung again, catching him across the shoulder. He roared in pain, dropping his knife. Within minutes, the mansion guards finally arrived, too late, as always. The men fled into the night, dragging their unconscious partner. But the damage was done. As I stood there, chest heaving, my hands trembling, Sophia approached me. Her expression was unreadable, but there was a glint in her eyes I hadn't seen before. "You didn't freeze," she said softly. "Most men would have frozen," I exhaled shakily. "Who were they?" She tilted her head as though deciding how much to tell me. "They were a warning, Adil. They wanted to remind me that my time is running out unless I hand over what they want." I swallowed hard. "The vault." Her lips curved into the faintest, coldest smile. "And more than the vault. They want the other thing, the thing behind the door." Before I could ask, she reached into her robe and pulled out a small black notebook, slipping it into my hands. "If I die," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "that notebook will tell you everything. Codes, names, the location of something far more important than what you've already seen. If you're smart, you'll use it. If you're foolish, you'll burn it and run." She turned and walked away, leaving me in the silent, darkened hall with the weight of a life I never asked for crushing my chest. As I stared at the notebook, I realized something horrifying. I wasn't just her husband anymore. I was her last line of defense. And if those men came back, they wouldn't just be coming for her. They would be coming for me. The night after the attack, the mansion felt heavier, as if the very walls had absorbed the violence. The servants whispered among themselves, the guards doubled their patrols, and Sophia, though composed, moved slower than usual. By morning, she was pale, her usual commanding posture weakened. I noticed her hand tremble as she reached for her tea. "Sophia, are you all right?" I asked, stepping closer. She looked up, her eyes distant. "I've been through worse," she whispered, though her voice was softer than I'd ever heard. "But I don't think this is age, Adil. This feels deliberate." My stomach tightened. "Deliberate?" "You think poison," she said flatly. The word hung in the air like smoke. Before I could speak, she slid a folded paper toward me, the same envelope she had given me earlier, only now it felt heavier, almost alive in my hand. "If I don't survive this," she said, "open it. Follow the instructions, and whatever happens, don't trust anyone. Not even the ones guarding this house. I wanted to argue, to tell her we needed to rush to the hospital, but her gaze stopped me. I don't fear dying, Adil. What I fear is leaving everything I've built in the wrong hands. Her words lingered as the day dragged on. By evening, Sophia collapsed in her study. Doctors rushed in, administering treatments, but even they exchanged worried glances when they thought I wasn't looking. I sat by her bedside long after the others had left, the steady beep of the monitors filling the silence. Her breath was shallow, her once sharp eyes dim. Adil, she murmured, barely audible. I leaned closer. There's something you must know before it's too late. She reached for my hand with surprising strength and pulled me closer, her lips near my ear. In the notebook, there's a second set of codes. They lead to a vault, not of gold or art, but something far greater. Information, evidence, enough to destroy the ones hunting me. Her voice grew weaker. If I die, you can choose. Use it to protect this legacy, or sell it, disappear, and live a life they can never find. No one would blame you. I gripped her hand tighter. Sophia, don't talk like this. You'll survive. We'll get you out of here, away from all this. Her lips curved faintly into what might have been a smile. I knew, when I met you, you were either my salvation or my ruin. Her hand went limp. For a moment, I thought she was gone, but the monitors assured me she was still fighting. Sat in the dim light of the room long after midnight, staring at the envelope and the notebook. If I opened them, I could uncover secrets powerful enough to change my life forever, maybe even end the threat looming over us. Or I could take them, vanish, and finally escape this dangerous world with enough wealth to secure my family's future 100 times over. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my sister. Mama's getting worse. The doctor says she needs immediate surgery. We don't have the money. I closed my eyes. Every choice weighed like a chain around my neck. On one hand, a sick mother and a struggling family. On the other, a woman who had saved us all, but had dragged me into a storm I never asked for. I looked at Sophia, lying there pale and still. The monitors kept their steady rhythm, but I couldn't shake the thought, if she died tonight, everything she owned, the wealth, the power, the secrets, would be mine to command. And somewhere in the shadows of the estate, I knew the same masked men were waiting, watching, ready to strike again if I made the wrong choice. The next morning, the mansion felt like a fortress under siege. Guards were stationed at every door, their eyes scanning the grounds with an unease I hadn't seen before. Despite their presence, the air buzzed with the quiet certainty that danger was closing in. Sophia remained unconscious, her frail figure dwarfed by the hospital bed we'd moved into her private chamber. The monitors hummed steadily, but each beep felt like a countdown. I hadn't slept. The envelope and the black notebook lay on the desk before me, two silent choices staring back like devils. My family's messages kept flashing on my phone. My mother's surgery, the unpaid bills, my sister's tears. Every instinct screamed that I could walk away with enough wealth to solve all of it, disappear, never look back. But every time I pictured my mother, I also pictured Sophia, the woman who had pulled me from the ashes of my life and, for reasons I still didn't fully understand, entrusted me with everything she held dear. Just before dawn, a soft knock at the study door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Amir, one of the newer guards, his face pale. "Sir, they're here." I stiffened. "Who?" He swallowed. "The men from the other night. They're back. 10, maybe 12 of them. Armed. They've cut the outer cameras." I grabbed the notebook and envelope, tucking them into my coat. "Where's the security team?" He hesitated. "Half of them." aren't responding on comes. I think someone inside sold us out. My stomach turned. Even here, betrayal. Before I could respond, gunfire cracked through the night. Shouts echoed from the western wing. The walls of the mansion trembled under the chaos. Amir raised his weapon. "Sir, we can get you out through the servants' exit. You can run while they're distracted." I cut him off. "No, they'll find me. They'll find all of us. And if they get what's in this notebook, no one will ever be safe again. Not my family, not Sophia, not even you." For the first time, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The fear was still there, but beneath it, purpose. The next hour blurred into a storm of survival. I moved through the mansion's halls like a man possessed, using every ounce of instinct I had. I triggered the emergency shutters to seal off key corridors, herded the few loyal guards toward defensible positions, and used the codes in Sophia's notebook to activate a failsafe I hadn't known existed. Hidden steel barriers that sealed the vault entrance and cut off the intruder's access to the underground chambers. When the attackers finally breached the main hall, they found us waiting, not running. What followed was chaos. Flashes of gunfire, the deafening crack of rifles, and shouts echoing off marble walls. By the time the smoke cleared, 5 of the masked men lay unconscious or wounded. The rest fled into the night, dragging their fallen with them. Amir stood beside me, breathing heavily, his uniform torn but his resolve unshaken. When I finally stepped back into Sophia's chamber, dawn was breaking. The first light of morning spilled across her bed. Her eyes were open now, faint but alive. "You stayed," she whispered. I sat beside her, exhaustion weighing down my limbs. "I almost didn't. I almost took everything and ran." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "But you didn't." I shook my head. "Because for the first time in my life, I realized I couldn't just live for myself. You trusted me, Sophia, and trust means something, even to a man like me." She studied me for a long moment, her tired eyes glinting with something softer than I'd ever seen before. "Then take it," she murmured, gesturing weakly toward the notebook. "Not to run, but to build. Protect what I've built. Make it better than I ever could." Her hand found mine, frail but steady. "You are not my husband, Adil, not truly. You are the son I never had. And now, the heir I choose." I swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling on me heavier than any fortune ever could. Outside, the sun rose over the shattered but still standing mansion. The attackers would be back, the threats would never fully vanish, but for the first time, I felt ready. Not as a broke student grasping for survival, but as someone with a purpose beyond himself. I looked at Sophia, her eyes finally closing in exhausted rest, and whispered, "I won't run, not anymore." And as the morning light filled the room, I knew the life I'd stumbled into, with all its danger, secrets, and unimaginable wealth, was now mine to protect, for better or worse. I had made my choice.